Okay, let me make sure I've got some decent sound here. All right, good. Okay, we want to get down to the down to module 8, which is where we're at now. We've been working ahead on these cases, and we've been working on Excel 13 and the case number 13 Excel, and that's dealing with pivot tables. So I'm going to go in here for those resources for the Excel cases. And there's also a case that's out of the textbook. And as I've said before, I'll pop it down here. These are quizzes. I went through Excel. Here we go. But we did that case on Pacific Trading, and that's the firm that sold the fruits to the different types of retailers. And that's the file that we used, and we went through that. I covered that already. Now, there's another file, and this one is the groceries PT. It's a pivot table file, and that's out of chapter 43. It's one of the practice files. And I wanted to spend some time looking at it today because I feel like it's good for you to get a good amount of exposure using pivot tables for a very simple reason. They are the closest thing that we have to some of the hybrid products that are being developed. And I would say, other than the randomization features in Excel and the optimization feature, it's probably the most useful. And what pivot tables are designed to do is to help us get the best of both worlds, and that is the best of the world of what we get in terms of a database, and the best of both worlds in terms of what we can do using a spreadsheet application. Now, chapter 43 is going to walk us through, and they use several files in here. The groceries pivot table is only one of several practice files, and they walk us through, the authors do, with some of the questions about, that are answered in the chapter. What's a pivot table? Different terms and how we can use it, calculated fields, slicers, what do we mean by drilling down, timeline features. There are many, many features that Microsoft has added into, and frankly, we could take a course just on that if we wanted to. So I'm going to cover some of the highlights in that sense and give you a good start in terms of what we can do with the tool. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go into the files section there in Canvas and go and find the companion files. That's a zip file with all the Excel files for zip file number 1 that has the files, and then go and get the chapter 43 and then grab that groceries PowerPoint. Now, I had worked on that Pacific Trading file, which is an old case, and so we did some work with it. You can upload it. I think I also have another file over there for XLS 13 that you can upload if you care to. And here's one. I think this is the one that has specific traders in it. And if you want to upload that one, fine. If you want to work with the groceries PT, that's that groceries pivot table file, that's okay. But I wanted to open it up and walk through it. And the text is going to give us some clues in terms of where we're headed with that, as I mentioned. And then they walk through it and they describe what a pivot table is. Now, when we work with a pivot table, just like we do with any Excel file, we typically are working with a table of data. In other words, we have a set of columns that are some kind of descriptor or some kind of column, and then we have records of events that, in combination, we have a full record. Let me show what I'm talking about, and I'll open up the groceries PowerPoint for you, and that'll help make some sense. And this is also a way for us to segue a little bit into working with databases. Okay, now this is the data tab, and it's pretty typical. I've got some what we call things we call dimensions: the year, the month, the store, the group, the product. These are dimensions, attributes, variables, whatever you would want to call them, and if you wanted, you could take this and just export it into a database, and you'd have a table. And so we draw data from those tables. Now, you also have a couple of what we would call fact columns. These are things that we can quantify, like the revenue, the units. The month there, I could count the months, how many times a month occurred or something like that. But for all intents and purposes, it's more dimensional. So dates are kind of a quasi-dimension, quasi-fact. And so these together give me a record of all of these sales per month, per group, per product. Okay? Well, the reason that a pivot table is such a great tool for us is it enables me to take these dimensions over here, or variables, and I can look at them in some different ways. As we've been working, for example, when we did the case where we looked at the used the linear regression, we had the number of units produced versus the percent defective. The number of units produced on an x-axis, the percent defective on the y. And that's great, but if I really wanted to see, well, if I reverse these, what do they look like? Or can I create some subgroups from these years or from the products? Can I look at them a little bit deeper? That's when we start to do what we call some slicing and dicing of the data, okay? Pivot tables are extremely useful because they're far more intuitive than working with a database. And when you go to work, you're going to run into some products. Probably the best that's out there. If you're lucky, you'll go to work for somebody who uses SAS Visual Analytics. SAS Visual Analytics is in my mind the premier application that lets you get the best of a database and the best of a spreadsheet. Meaning, with SAS Visual Analytics, you can comb through thousands, tens of thousands of tables of collected data, look at them in a whole bunch of different ways. And the best analogy is like a kaleidoscope, where I take the data and I try to sift around and look at them and see if I get some different looks as I play around with these variables. There in the text, they walk through and they show us, and they're starting with this file, groceries PT, okay? And I'm using this because there are several files that they use there in chapter 43 to walk you through doing different things with pivot tables. And as I said before, just using them alone would be an entire course. But once you've seen one of these and you understand what it is, when you encounter a product out at work, like a SAS Visual Analytics, Oracle has a product, SAP has a product, you're not going to be too nonplussed. And also, they're highly, highly intuitive, so they'll be easy for you to use. Now, they show us the data from this grocery store, and we have all of these records, okay, of these transactions that occurred. And so we say, all right, I want to analyze these, and I want to start to look at them in a different way. So the first thing we do is we engage in creating a pivot table. So I'm going to take the data here, and I'm going to click Insert, and you'll see the pivot table pops up. I'm going to click up pivot table, and I'm going to choose the pivot table range, and here the range is C2 to I-924. There's like 920 or some odd records here, okay, in this dialog box. Now, I can either take that pivot table that I'm creating and put it into a new tab, or I can put it into the existing tab. And usually what you want to do, worksheet, excuse me, and I want to put it into a new worksheet. Okay? Did everybody see what I did there? And look, the tendency is to use the grabber and go down there and grab everything, which if you have 5,000 cases, records, you're not going to want to do that. So when you're at work, you'll probably have something that will give you an indication of the number of records that you have. Tables tend to be tall. Okay, if you look at this, it's tall. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. 7 columns and 924 records. That's a typical dimension of a table. That's typical what a table looks like. It's very, very tall because we're looking at a few key dimensions. Okay, and we stop and think about that. Okay, what year did the transaction occur? What month? We could even have the date if we wanted to, but they've chosen month. What store, what product was sold, how many units, and what was the revenue produced. Okay, and so we've got that whole set of records. Now, 900 records is not much. If you're a medium-sized company, if you're even really a small business, you could well have tens of thousands of transactions. It just depends on what you do. Okay, if you're a local shop over here that does works on collision, fixes cars after they've been in a wreck, you might have 2,000 or 3,000 records a year for a complete total transaction. But I guarantee you the complications arise when you start keeping tables of all the parts you've ordered, etc. So the scaling is always something you want to be thinking about, but you always want to have a sense of where that range is at. Now I'm going to stop and see if there's anybody in here or out there in TV land who is not where I'm at. Anybody? Yes? Question? Anybody have a question? So you understood what we're doing at this point, okay? And I'm going to put it in a new worksheet. I'll click OK. And now we're over here in a new, and see this says sheet 1, okay? And this is that new data sheet. Now, you're looking at two things. On the left, that's the plate, okay? The canvas, whatever words you want to use for it, okay? This is where you're going to throw stuff into the table. Over here are the pivot table fields, all right? And I want to spend some time talking about them in terms of what's here. Now, you'll notice that we have all of these dimensions as well as the fact data, okay? I'm going to scoot this out a little bit better so you can see it, okay? Now, when I pop out of there, it'll go blank. If you look at the top right-hand side, you should see the field list, the add or the add buttons, the field headers. And what you have here is basically the following. You've got the fields up above, all right? And we call it a pivot table because if I wanted to take, for example, the store, I could put the store over here in the columns, or I could put it in the rows. Now you say, what's the big deal about that? Well, when I get a collection of variables, it might give me some insights and let me see something from the data that I had not seen before. Or it might say, hey, wait a minute, here's something to look at. You remember when we started the course, and I have it over there, I think it's up in the welcome area, the article from Anscom's quartet. This is back from Statistica, I think, from 1973. Basically, he said our capacity to generate data, okay, is outstripping our ability to generate information. And data is information is data for decision making. And he said we're really outstripping our ability to visualize data, to put it into a format that people, i.e. human beings, understand. We see patterns and understand it. So I've got the pivot table, and I have a filter. And I think of the filter as like a big window, okay? And then I think of the columns as one part of the window, the horizontal part, and then the row is the vertical, and then the values is the stuff I fill in. Okay? Now, let's go back for a moment, back to the textbook, and we've done our table, and then they show us the pivot table fields. Okay? Now there's many features in pivot tables that you could do, and we're not going to do all of them. Chapter 43 walks you through a good number of them and gives you step by step. And I'm a believer that you can do that, but you'll really just over time, if you work with them or a product like that, it will become almost second nature in terms of what you see. And here they give you the define, the rows, the columns, the values, the filters. Okay. And here's a pivot table with the fields. All right. So we're going to start, and I'm going to take my Excel file and I'm going to scale it down just a hair so I can get over here and see. And the filter is going to be the month. So I'll come up here and I'll click month. Now I can drag and drop this down to the filter. Okay. And then let's see, I'm going to look at the year, and the year is going to be over here in the rows. So I'll scroll back up to the year. I'm going to have them in a certain order. And let's see, the next thing I want to do is I want to work with the store. Well, I want year, group, and product. So I'm going to put year and then group. And then product. And it's just, you drag and drop it. So I'll put product below the group. Okay. So I've got year, group, and product. And I took the product. I should have it in there. It's telling me, no, you haven't. So I'll check it. Okay, I've got the product in there already, so I'm good. So let's make sure I have the product. I've got the year, the group, the product, and then I want the store below product. Now in the columns, I'm not going to do anything yet because I'm going to take the units and put them in the values. Okay. And then I'm going to put revenue. Okay. And you'll notice, whoops, pardon me, put them in the wrong area. So I went to row, group. There we go. Nope, I messed them up. Put the revenue down here. And then I'll put the units on top. In the values, I apologize. Now, so as you can check the book, I've got the book open. And we'll go back up here for a second. And your pivot in your table, you should have over the filter is the month. Okay, that's the big frame. Then we have the rows. That's the stuff running horizontal. Okay, and that's year, group, product, and store. And then we didn't have anything we stuck in the column, but we put the sum of the units and the sum of the revenue in the units in the values section. And then automatically it said, okay, I've got some of the values up in the columns. Everybody should be with me on this point. See it? Got it? Now you can see why this is such a powerful application and such a popular one, regardless of whether it's Microsoft Excel or it's one of the other commercial products that are out there, is because I can easily manipulate these variables. To do this in a database, and then take that database, that the result of the query, and export it is a lot of work. So this is a lot of what you'll be working with or seeing when you go out to work as you start to make some sense of what you're doing. Now, this is a conversation I had with a client this week. I work with several churches here in town with their databases and trying to help them do some other kinds of studies for them. But to make a long story short, one of the most important things is you have to have what we call query discipline, and that is you have set things for which you run a query. You do set analyses. Then you go looking just what we would call serendipitous. And if anybody is smart, they have a calendar of when they run reports, because it's easy when you get a tool like this to just get lost in it and running all this stuff, and then you're sitting there, you're really not seeing what fits the data that it's going to inform you in terms of your business and its performance. Okay, so we've done that, right? And we'll scroll up here and we'll take a look, and you can see it's very intuitive, very, very, very intuitive. And I have the row labels and I have the values, and you can see that I've got for 2005 and all of the cereal products it sells. If you'll come here to cereal for a moment and click on it, okay? And you should, once it turns, it should go like, and you should be able to collapse that. And you could collapse the fruit. And you could do the same with the ice cream. And you could do the same with the milk. We had what we had was what's called a compact view. Here we've really compacted the view. If I want to just focus on kind of a higher level, or I hesitate to say macro level, but just see overall with these products, cereal, fruit, ice cream, and milk, how I did in 2005, okay? Now, if you look at the filter up here, and again, the reason these are so popular and so powerful is that you see how easy it is to use. Now, if you go all the way through chapter 43 and you work through every single one of those, you're going to come away going, wow, this is a fantastic way to work with data. And it really, truly is. And I can click all of those months. If I want, I can choose January. I could choose 2 months. I could choose 3 months or all 4 of them. It doesn't matter. So I can start at that level. So let's click on April. We'll click OK, and we see here's the data for April. Now, one of the nice things about it is also this. Let's say I'm doing a report for work. My boss has asked me to give him a report. I can take a print screen of this, throw it into a Word document, and I can tell my boss, okay, take a look, because you could see for yourself how things looked month by month by month. And this conveys a lot more data than a chart. Now, you can create a chart from it if you wanted to, but you could say if you want to look at April, you could, and really what you have here is you have 2005, 2006, 2007, okay? So you have 3 years, and you have these months within these years, so you can see the level of analyses. And then as I begin to drill down, that becomes even more, it becomes even more dense, and it starts to give me a clearer picture of what I'm really looking at. So I'm interested in the month of April. For some reason, I think April is important. So I'm going to come here to the cereal, and I'm going to expand it. I'm going to expand the fruit. Okay. If it's going to be nice to me, let me do that. Okay. And the same with ice cream. And then with milk. And notice it does it, when I do it for one period, it does it for all of them. I have grand totals set up. I've got the sum of the units, the sum of the revenue. Okay. Now I've departed a little bit from the script that they've got in there, just simply to let you see the versatility of this. And as it should become apparent, the discipline that is how you slice and dice these data, has to be driven by something has to be driven by company strategy, and that's linked to company goals and objectives. Each of those in temporal terms, objectives being short term, typically a year, maybe 2, maybe 3. A goal, maybe a 5-year period on a horizon, and then strategic is something more timeless. Okay, so are we meeting our goals? So we can take a look and start to ask those types of questions. But as you can see, I've got a good amount of data. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click all of them, and you'll see that I have all of the years, okay, all of the months for all of the years. Now, you'll notice up here at the very top where I have my cursor, you'll see a thing that says Pivot Table Tools. Pivot tables, like a chart, have some design and analysis elements, and I'm going to click on the design element, okay? And if you come over to the left, you'll see a thing that says Report Layout. Click that, and you can show the report in a variety of ways, okay? You can show it in compact form, outline form, tabular form, repeating labels, not repeating labels, but the main 3 are compact, outline, and tabular. And each of those are really just designed. The text gives you some verbiage about them. They're really they're designed to fit your comfort level. What are you comfortable looking at? So let's show this in compact form. Okay. And I think we're probably already there. Then click outline form. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. And then I can click show it in tabular form. There are some nuances in terms of what you're looking at and how the data are presented. Okay. And if you want them up here on the styles, you can click a style. And it gives you a nice table. You want to choose that style, pivot style, and you've got all kinds of choices in terms of that style. And you can see the table up there. So it lays it out with a nice ribbon, all that business. Now, if I want to, I have the ability to drill down not only in terms of the month, but I can drill down in terms of the year. So I'm going to click right here on the year, right? And I can select all of them or one of them. So he says, so Dr. Harmer, what you're saying is I could look at April for those years, yes. May for all those years, yes. April for 1 or 2 of those years, yes. April for every other year, yes. It's going to depend upon what you're trying to find out, the question you're trying to answer, okay? Or, i.e., the query or measure that you're after. Okay. Now, like I said, Chapter 43 has a script that they walk you through, and that's fine, okay? And you can do things, you can format the table itself, you can format the numbers or how they're presented. Now, you can use things like conditional formatting. It's all about display, but it's also about changing the look of things. Now, I'm going to go back and let's click Report Layout, and let's show it in a compact form. Okay? Now, we have the rows over here, okay? And we got them by state. We should have the year in there as well. With the product on the store. Where's my year at? Did I not assign year? Yeah, I've got year assigned. I've got values over here. Okay. I'm going to take, let's find the year here. Yeah, I know it's in there. It's got to be. This is what I get for using these tiny little screen on these computers. I hate these silly things. But there it is. I'm going to take year. Watch what I'm going to do. That's officially getting old, so I'm sorry, folks. And I'm going to take the year, and I'm going to move it into the columns. You say, why? Well, I want to get a different look. So I'll take it and I'll set it above the columns. It's going to let me do that. Now we have a completely different look. Okay? Different type, level of detail. This is one of the things that text asks you to do. And again, for all intents and purposes, yeah, hey, it's up to you. Now you say, oh, I don't like that. I want to change what I did. It's really simple. Come back up here to the far left corner, all right, and click Undo. And you'll be back to where you were. That's what I do. I use the undo. It's just simpler. Now you say, okay, what am I looking at? Well, I have, for all the months for these years, 2005, 2006, 2007, I have their sales of these products. I have the total revenues. So I have what I sold in terms of Cheerios, and then what I sold in so I have it by product. And then I have the stores. Okay. Now, one of the things that I would mention is this: when you look at the rows, okay, when you change the order of the rows, you change the look of the output. So if you say, well, I really want to focus on stores as opposed to the products, I can do that pretty easily. I'll come down to the store and I'll just take it out. It's a drag and drop. So notice now store is blank because I haven't included the analysis. I'm focusing on products. Now, if I want, I can come back in, and I think we had the store. Let me look at the book to see how they had this, where they had the store placed. And product, and then the year group product store. So, okay, so I'll come back here to me, and I'll take the store, and I'll put it under product again. So there we are. But this time now, okay, I'm going to look at the store. So I'm going to come down here, store sales. I'm going to take products out of the mix. They should be out of the mix. Yep. Oh, they got the group. Yeah, I'll take that group out too. So what do you get with that? Now I'm down to the stores. So I took out the products. The group is the type of product. That's a little bit misnamed. It should be a product type, but they call it group. And now I'm looking at the source. You with me? Everybody? Anybody? Let me stop for a moment. Anybody have a question? It says, you say, well, it seems like you're just kind of mixing and matching stuff as you go along. Yes. I'm doing it just to show you the features. If you do this out in the real world, this is why I was talking about this idea of query discipline. What reports should we run? And the one client I've dealt with this week, they have an awful problem of people running into the office of the individual who does their database for them, who does all the searches and so forth, the reports and set. And they'll come in and they'll run in and they'll say, could you get me a report that tells me blah, 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 blah. Now, it's not on the reporting calendar. It's a serendipitous or just a simple off-the-cuff request. And it's wonderful, but which would you rather have? A report that tells you how many people were in Sunday school or your life groups that week, or how many redheads are part of the singles group at your church? Which one's more valuable? Well, I think you'd want to have a priority list. And so the calendarization is intended to create a priority list. In fact, on the calendarization, they even have 2 days a week scheduled where they take nothing but just off-the-wall questions people have. How many people live in this zip code? How many people have that come to church here have this area code? How far away could those people be? All kinds of things like that just pop in people's heads. People can get a tool like this and they can go nutty, okay? This is a lot like, maybe your experience is different than mine, but as an adolescent, the day I got my driver's license, I wanted to drive everywhere. I had a hunger to drive. I drove as much as I could. Today, I go, I got to drive all the way over there. Or, and I'm certain young men will some of you might agree with this. I could not wait till the day I had to shave. When that day came, my father said to me, you're going to do this for the rest of your life, and you will get tired of it. And was he right? He gets sick of shaving day in and day out. Yeah. And if I can go a day without shaving, it's a good day. Because how many times I've shaved my face? 20,000 times in my life? I have no idea. I could have been eating ice cream all that time. Nonetheless, you could see a little bit of what I've been talking about. Now, let's click on one of these tabs we have the data tab, we have the sheet, and then let's look at this tab called the serial collapse. This is one of the tasks they have you do. And here we've collapsed those, so we're looking at the products, and I think we already did this in that one sheet when we were playing around with it. But you could see we're focused simply on products for all months per year. Now, if I'm interested in, say, all right, I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at cereal, fruit, ice cream, and milk. And let's look at our months. Now, the authors have uncomplicated this, or did they give us every month of the year? Maybe they did. Oh, they did. Thank you, authors. All righty. Now, which month of the year would I think I'm going to sell the most ice cream? Well, I have some candidates. And I would think I'm probably going to sell the most during June, July, and August. So if I think that's true, okay, or let's say that my vendor, the people who sell me the ice cream that I retail, okay, they run promotions. If they run the promotions like buy one, get one free, etc., I ought to see some different types of sales levels. So I'm curious to find out about that. So I'm gonna click select multiple rows. Unclick that. I'm gonna select June, put my cursor on it, and put control. July. Oh, you weasel. All right, we'll just do this. They're going to make me play on. There's June, July, and August. And then I'll run that. And here we are. It says multiple items up there, but I can click on the down arrow and I can see what was selected. I could go back and compare the winter quarter and see if there's some big differences. This is the first step of drilling down, and the next step, of course, would be to analyze the data. I could further visualize them if I cared to. And you say, what are you talking about? Well, let's take, we've got these items for ice cream, and I'm going to take a look at that one. And let's see, I've got 42,000. And then I'm going to pop down here for 2006. I've got 43,000. Okay. And then for 2007, I've got 42,000 again. So if I wanted to, okay, this just simply becomes a question for me. If I'll just copy that, okay, and then I'll paste it, and I've got that number, and I can build a little table on the side. You follow me? If I want to do that, to see, is there a pattern? Well, there's really not. It's up a little bit the next year and then down a little bit the next. Again, I know I'm departing from the scripting, but you could see why we could have just nothing but a whole course. So people that work with this and who do analytics for companies, and or as a manager, you say, well, I'm not going to do all these. No, you won't, but you'll get a dashboard every day of key performance indicators, just like your car has a dashboard. If you go into if you're sick and you go into the emergency room, they're going to take your temperature, ask you some questions, find out about what medication you take, and obviously they'll make sure you have insurance, and so they'll do some preliminary things to do some diagnostics. Now here's one where they show us the years column. Okay, and this shows us the sum of the revenues, the sum of the units, year by year. By product group, excuse me, then by product, then by store. Now, let's take chocolate milk. Who's the big dog in the block in terms of chocolate milk? Well, it's pretty simple. And for 2007. And I'm going to just simply highlight those figures right there. This is for 2007, the sum of the revenue. I'm over at home, and I'm going to use conditional formatting. Now, the nice thing is I can do this on the fly if I need to. Now, let me stop for a minute. If I lost anybody, or does this make sense? It makes sense enough. It can put you to sleep. Trust me. I understand that. It's one of these days when you're out there trying, they're asked to come up with some data, and then the fun begins. But you can see it can almost overwhelm you. And we have a very simple set of data. We really don't have that much that we're working with. Now we'll go ahead over to this next one. And here we show them by group by year. We've done that a little bit already. Now, they're going to bring us into a chart, okay? The pivot charts are a little trickier, and when you click in it, I've got the fields, and then you'll see the pivot chart tools above. You see that up here? So once Once I click inside the data table or the chart, I get the pivot chart fields. And then if you look at the top, okay, you should see the pivot chart tools tab. And there are three of them: analyze, design, and format. And you customize accordingly. Now, one of the things about this chart, which is nice, is it's got everything laid out. It shows me. Now, I could use some label. It could use some labels like, okay, well, these are the sales, okay? And that's pretty obvious. We'll scroll down over here. And then these are the years. That's fairly intuitive. So if you want to put labels on them, you could or not. But one of the things I always like to do, and that I like with this product, and all commercial products are going to have this, is take your cursor and expand this thing. Okay? And then let's expand this. If you work with data over a long period of time, you always want to make sure that you don't crush those data so that they give a distorted perception. Okay? Now, you've only have 3 data points here, so for all intents and purposes, the line chart's nice, but I think a different type of chart would be better for you. So I would change chart type, and I am going to use what I think makes a lot of sense, and that's going to be a bar chart. Okay? I could do a histogram. It will show me what it's going to look like. And some of these are a little bit weird, but I'm going to do the bar chart. Okay? And I'll scroll down here, and I'll choose it. I'm going to click OK. You see how much more sense that makes? That's, again, why I gave you guys that Stephen Few book, so you'll start to cue in on some of this stuff. Now I can say, oh, okay. If I want to, now it would jumble up, but most of these products have this feature, the pop-up, okay? So I don't really have to have those values on there. I can have good intervals for the values. You with me? That just looks so much cleaner, and you could start to see a trend. Now, I think if you want, you can add a trend line. Let's see if I can do that. And is it going to let me add a trend line? I guess so, okay. And it will let me choose the type of trend line I want to do. I'm not going to do it because I don't have enough data points for this to really be meaningful. But you could see there. And I'll just delete it. If I had 20 years of data, that's a different matter. Now, the text, and we've jumped a little bit ahead. We've gone through some of these steps with the compact view, the tabular format. And expanding and collapsing fields. And they have you walk you through some other charts that are there, data tables. They're in the practice file, some other files. We'll go over here for a moment. And let's look at we got it show it by group by year. And let's follow the little 3 buttons there. Boom. And we'll get another chart, okay? And these are sales per year. I can see the right-hand legend. And again, I've got so few data, I'm probably just going to go ahead and change that chart type. I'm going to make it a bar chart because it just makes a lot more sense. I wouldn't use a pie chart because a pie chart is intended to show proportion. And I'm not really looking at proportions. If I did it for 1 year or 1 month, whatever, that makes sense. But for these 3 years, it's a time series set of data. So I'm going to look at them in this way. And again, I use the pop-up feature, and this is in all of these commercial products, to show the exact data point. Now, here's another where we have everything broken down by year. And you say, okay, tell me, what does that look like? How'd you get that? Well, it's simple. I can look over in the pivot table fields and see, and I've just broken it down by year at this point. Now, I'm still working with a basic table, as you can see here. I just did manipulation with the filters. Now, if I wanted to, I could do a little computation. If I was interested in seeing these as percentages, I'm going to do this. I'm going to highlight 2007, 6, and 5. Okay, and I'm going to come over here. I'm in the home area. I'll highlight these, and I'm going to click percent. Okay. Well, wait a minute. I messed myself up here. I want to get the whole set of them, including the total, so it makes sense. It's nonsense otherwise. There's the percentage. Ooh, that's weird. I shouldn't be getting this stuff. Back out of that. Well, the sum of the revenue. Okay. Percent. It should do this for me. I don't know why it's not. Well, let's just do the value field settings and try and see if that will get us out of that predicament. Maybe it will. Okay. No, it's not going to do it. It's going to give me all these statistical things that I don't really care. Let's click show values as. No, it's not going to let me do that. Well, what I could do is just over here add a percentage column and just calculate. It'd be easy to do. Just do it and then drag and drop it if you wanted to see the percentages. And you could do that for units and or revenues. But I should be able to get these in percentage format. Now I'm going to try this. No, it's not going to play nice with me. And there's a little value, field value setting. You do that probably over here in the table in the sum of revenue. And let's see, I'm going to check the field value settings. No. Show the values. Those are some, okay. Well, you could just perform the operations. It's not that many of them. So how would you, well, we'll take the units. And you put the label for the units. I'll just show that. And this will equal, okay. And you'll see it's, I'll just divide it by. And then we should just be able to drag and drop it all the way down here. No, I'm gonna let me do it. It's gonna make me do that each time. What do I need to change here? 4. I'll just go ahead and do it this way. Sometimes doing it the old-fashioned way is better. So I'll take and you can see a little extra work there. As long as I get what I need to get, I do that. Same story here. And then I can try to put these data into some type of perspective in terms of the sum of the revenue. And then I'll format these to a percent style. And if I want to add a decimal, increase a decimal, I'll do that. I mean, add a decimal. There we go. That's the nice thing if I want to do something improvisational. You can go in and mess with these value settings and so forth. And I tend to get a little bit lost in them. And if I'm in a hurry or I want to just not fiddle with it, I just go ahead and take the data that are over there and create my own. So I have the units. You could do the same thing with the revenue. Now, at this point, if there's anybody who's really, really terribly confused, please let me know, because I don't think this is that complicated. I really don't. I think you're looking at this going, wow, this is a nice little tool. Now, here's a thing called the slicer. Can you maybe you've worked with these, maybe you haven't. And the book walks you through the process, but essentially what you do is you click insert, and then when you click inside, and then you can click insert, and it will take you. You see the slicer over here in the filters? Or if you want, you can insert a timeline. The slicers let me whip down through these months. And so if I want to just choose January, okay, or February, March, you get my drift. If I want to slice by product, and notice I can look at the month of January, watch how I'm slicing this, and I'm interested in the month of January, apples, okay? I can do the month of February, and I can do Ben and Jerry's. I can use slicers. I can also use the timeline slicers. And these are useful for drilling down to a particular level. Here I'm looking at the month of February, and I want to see, okay, well, how did we do with Ben and Jerry's in terms of those products? And I can see. And this is what they call the first 6 months, and it looks like, but imagine what they've probably done is taken January through June and used the slicer on that. Now, we're back into the tabular form. Here they have them by the top 2 groups. And you say, well, what does that look like? Okay, well, here's our basic choices, the filters we've got. And we've got them in terms of the sums of the unit. Now click on the little filter here. And we have a value filter. And they've chosen the top 10. And then from that, you can get the top 2 groups. And they've got the products sorted, formatted for dollars. You can do that also just simply going into the home page. But they walk you through some steps there in terms of working with the field settings. This is just another formatting where you have blank rows without totals. Here's where you use some conditional formatting, and in this you're using some data bars. And for me, it's utterly meaningless. I can't make heads or tails of which one is larger or not, to be truthful. And again, they show us the years column and the groups collapse. So that's that cycle there. Now, in that chapter 43, and we started a little bit early, so we'll wrap it up here. But I'm going to go back and let you know if 43 has several practice files, and it walks you through each of them. For example, like this one where you sort, you grab the top 50, you use conditional formatting to highlight the top 50%. And this is from one of their cases there. So they've got several of those practice files. If you'd want to mess with them, see what they look like, follow the steps. A lot of this, frankly, is just going to be stuff that you'll use if you're doing it on almost a daily basis. But the authors want to cover it so you can see it and get a sense of how it's done. You can see all the different work you can do with it. Okay, so the groceries practice file, that one we worked on here today, you could save it and upload it, as well as, or the one that we uploaded when we worked with Pacific Trading. Again, like I said before, we could go through this XLS 13 done is the one that was Pacific Trading. We could do nothing but an entire course on pivot tables, which are tremendously powerful tools, and they kind of give us a little bit of a way to put our toe in the water as we start to move and work with databases. And when we start to do that, we're going to work with Access, and we'll learn some concepts about databases, why we use them and how they're put together. And then we'll have some cases that we'll use, and it'll be the same thing. I have some old Access cases I've developed. There will also be some from the text that will give you a step-by-step recipe if that's how you want to do it and work with it. Okay? All right, folks, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I think we're good to go, and I will see you online next week.